And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who digs padding into the kitchen late at night to check leftovers. Hi, folks, and welcome to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And it is gorgeous here today on Milleronia. And you know, the truth is, it's a perfect day for Thanksgiving. And you know what? Thanksgiving is a terrific holiday. It's a wonderful holiday and very meaningful. And especially here on Milleronia, and, well, especially with that music that always makes me feel so good. That's the Branko Lustig Orchestra and the Inger Stevens Dancers, featuring boy tenor Don Riley, asking the musical question, if you keep your nose to the grindstone, won't you soon run out of nose? Good one, Don. And yes, you will. You know, that's a great old saying. You don't see a lot of grindstones these days, do you? I mean, that must be, 5,000, 10,000 years ago? I don't even know what the thing does. I don't even know what a grindstone does. But yes, Don, you know, if you keep your nose to the grindstone, won't you soon run out of nose? You will. Good one, Don, and thanks. And by the way, I want to tell you something about Branko Lustig. He's an interesting man. He was a Holocaust survivor and rose to become producer of Schindler's List. That's pretty good. Quite a fella. Schindler's List. And Charlie's Angels 3, by the way. No, I'm just being silly about that. No, he didn't. He really was quite a guy. And he just passed away last week. And by the way, there is a new Charlie's Angels movie coming out. Elizabeth Banks. Reporters kept asking her, why another one? And she said, there have been 37 Spider-Mans in the last 3 years. Why is everyone bent about another Charlie's Angels? And you know what? She's right. And why not? Why the heck not? And by Amazon. That's right, still on Thanksgiving or any other day, still one of the best companies in the world. And I just have to say, I know it's Thanksgiving, and you know it's Thanksgiving, and tomorrow is Black Friday, where you go shopping, and Monday is Cyber Monday, where you do it all on the internet. Now, I would like to suggest sleeping in and forgetting the whole thing, okay? But if you really want to get out there or internet yourself to oblivion, don't forget to go to our website and click our banner for Amazon. Then go back to bed. But remember, if you really, really want to go shopping, go to our website, LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. And that brings me now to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. This is a good one. We like this a lot. The Colonel and I had a nice giggle over it, and I hope you have one too. The Emperor is in his palace, and he decides, you know what? I want to get the best samurai warrior in the world to be my personal guard. And, well, as you may know, once the Emperor says something, it gets done. And he sends out all the guys, all his guards, all the army, to all over the world to find the greatest samurai warrior and make a deal and bring him back to the Emperor, to the palace. And they do. They come back. It takes a while, several months, and they come back with 3 guys, 3 special guys, 3 great samurais, one of whom was going to be the one. And they have one Japanese guy, one Chinese guy, and one Jewish guy. And they're all big-time samurais. And the Emperor, in the throne room there, motions to the Japanese guy, who steps up and says, all right, fellas, let's see who's got what. and he takes out a box. The emperor takes out a special wooden box he has that's very handsomely carved, and he opens it up, and a fly comes out and just goes swirling around, and that samurai whips out his sword and right in half. He swipes down on right in half and gets that, and the emperor has to say, that's pretty good. I'm impressed. And the Japanese guy goes back to the where the others are, and now he motions for the Chinese guy to come up, the samurai, and he takes out another box, opens it, and same thing, another fly comes out, just goes all over the place, and the Chinese guy looks at it very carefully and just follows it, then whips out his sword and sideways, just right in half again. And a magnificent shot. And the emperor is, he's very impressed. And now he motions to the Jewish guy, the samurai. And he comes forward and he opens a third box. And another fly comes out, and the Jewish samurai is just watching very calmly. And then he whips out his sword and the fly goes and races out of the room. And the emperor says, "What did you do? What did you do? You didn't even kill it. You did. I'm looking for someone who can protect me." And the Jewish guy says, "What, kill it? You should try circumcising something that small." And we got a good giggle out of that. And by the way, you should. I've been to a number of circumcisions, and I think doing a fly that's buzzing around like that would be tough. I don't care if it's now or 5,000 years ago. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. Thanksgiving String Quartet. This is a lovely poem by the great Edgar Albert Guest, who, by the way, lived from 1881 to 1959. He was born in England but grew up in the United States, worked at newspapers, but then tried his hand at poetry later in life, and I'm glad he did. This is called Thanksgiving by Edgar Albert Guest. Getting together to smile and rejoice, and eatin' and laughin' with folks of your choice, and kissin' the girls and declarin' that they are growin' more beautiful day after day, chattin' and braggin' a bit with the men, buildin' the old family circle again, livin' the wholesome and old-fashioned cheer, just for a while at the end of the year. Greetings fly fast as we crowd through the door, and under the old roof we gather once more, just as we did when the youngsters were small. Mother's a bit grayer, that's all. Father's a little bit older, but still ready to romp and to laugh with a will. Here we are back at the table again, tellin' our stories as women and men. Bowed are our heads for a moment in prayer. Oh, but we're grateful and glad to be there. Home from the East Land and home from the West. Home with the folks that are dearest and best. Out of the sham of the cities afar, we've come for a time to be just what we are. Here we can talk of ourselves and be frank, forgetting position and station and rank. Give me the end of the year and it's fun, when most of the planning and toiling is done. Bring all the wanderers home to the nest. Let me sit down with the ones I love best. Hear the old voices still ringing with song. See the old faces unblemished by wrong. See the old table with all of its chairs, and I'll put soul in my thanksgiving prayers. Isn't that nice? Isn't that lovely? Edgar Albert Guest, really? I think put it well. Sure, it's the end of the year. Don't worry about this. Well, one guy is the president of this and the other guy, who cares about anything? You know what? Smile as you come through that door and sit down, and you'll be a family once more. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, MMM, the Magic Movie Moment. This is a terrific movie, and it's been a while since I've seen it, and I hope you know it too. Hang 'em High, from 1968, directed by Ted Post, starring Clint Eastwood, Pat Hingle, Inger Stevens, Bruce Dern, Bob Steele, Ed Begley, Ben Johnson, Arlene Galanka, Alan Hale Jr., and so many more. Oh, it's a great cast. What a good story. It's a terrific Clint Eastwood movie. It starts out bad for Clint Eastwood. He's being hanged by a lynch mob out in the middle of a scrubby desert area where there's one tree and they're going to hang him from it. And folks, that's a tough scene. He's innocent. He's a lawman and was for a long time. And he didn't do what they think he did, but boy, that doesn't matter. Those were tough times, and they're about to prove it. And he's saved. He's hanging there alone after they do that. Later, much later, the great Ben Johnson comes riding by, and he's a lawman. And he sees someone hanging by a tree, and he goes way over there, and he saves him. It's a terrific story. And there's a magic movie moment I love. Clint Eastwood decides to go to the city. It's not a state yet. It's a territory. Boy, they're trying to move along fast. And holy mackerel, Pat Hingle, a great actor, plays the judge, and he's a hanging judge. And he wants to look really tough and official and like a great community so he can help them become a state. And Clint Eastwood goes to work for him so he can check all the fellas coming in those carts to be hanged, to see if the guys who tried to hang him are in it. It's a great movie, and there's a magic movie moment, many of them in this movie, but there's a hanging scene, a big one, where 6 bad guys are about to be hanged, and Eastwood tries to save the 2 teenage brothers who saved him. Out on the search, on the hunt for all of these guys, with Bruce Dern as a real bad guy. He was such a great actor. He still is. And you know what? These 6 guys, Eastwood tries to save the 2 teens, but Pat Hingle won't budge. The judge says, no, this is it, and that's what's going to happen, and right now. And they're not bad at all, the 2 teens. They helped him. They saved the day. But Pat Hingle won't have it. And Eastwood is so mad. Everyone in the territory comes for this hanging. And they're all dressed up, including, the prostitutes who work in the local place there. This is a big day for everyone. And Eastwood is so mad that he can't save the brothers that he grabs a whore from the crowd where she is with her friends, and she's all dressed up too. And he takes her back to the brothel there, doesn't say a word, and puts her in bed there, and he just gets undressed, and she gets undressed, and they just do it. And as they're doing it, we cut back to the hanging scene, and they go through everyone to get their last words, and there's one fellow who tells a story, and there's another fellow who wanted a chew of tobacco, but those 2 brothers look at each other, and they don't know why this has happened. They know it's going to happen. But one brother looks at the other and says, Jim, I can't remember his name. And the other brother just shakes his head, and he says, bye. And then, you know what happens. They pull that big stick on the top of that freshly painted gallows there. and everyone drops like what they are, including the two teenage brothers. It's a terrific movie. That moment to me, that scene to me, really means something. And Clint just couldn't save them. And it's a big part of a big story. If you haven't seen it, see it. Hang 'em High from 1968. A wonderful movie with a great cast. And by the way, Bob Steele, I loved mentioning, plays one of the guys he was in the lynch mob. And Bob Steele is a great actor, and you may know him from F Troop, where he played Duffy, the only survivor from the Alamo, which, of course, is, well, it's funny in a dark way. F Troop was a great show, but obviously, as you know, there were no survivors from the Alamo, but Duffy said, yes, he was. There we were, backs to the wall, cannon to the left and cannon to the right, and he would always want to tell the story about his escape. He was great in F Troop, and you know what? He's great in this movie. A good actor. And Eastwood tries to go around to catch all of the folks who did this. See it sometime. Hang 'em High, or see it again. I sure would like to. And, I went out today, in fact, and I decided I felt like saying Happy Thanksgiving to whoever I met. I had a doctor's appointment over the hill, and I went there, and, well, it's kind of interesting. There was a very sweet old lady who was coming down the hall just as I got off the elevator in this a big doctor's building, and she said, oh, hold it, and I did. I said, take it easy, you don't have to run, and I put my arm in there and held it for her, and she said, oh, thank you. And I said, well, why not? Here it is just before Thanksgiving. I hope you have a good one. And she immediately said, oh, I hate that crap. And she didn't like it at all. And I said, whoa, holy mackerel, you really? And I had to laugh. She was so funny, just being so cranky about it. And I said, you know what? You may surprise yourself. You may have a good time there anyway. And she was already in the elevator and the doors were closing, and she still had time to go, just, oh, no. And that's funny. Someone just couldn't take it, doesn't like it. But you know what? There's always room for funny, crazy things on the Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving. And you know what? I had to park my car in the parking lot in the building there. But I needed to go after that to our accountant. And he was halfway between, the doctor's office and back to Stately Miller Manor. And I didn't know. They only take cash. They didn't take credit cards. And I needed to get a new credit card, and I had no cash. I had $1. And after the doctor's appointment, when I came down there and I called my accountant, said, I'll be right there. And he said, he's a good fellow. He does a good job. And he doesn't have exactly the best as a sense of humor, because he said, I'll tell you what, I'll come down with the new credit card so you don't have to park with the valet there and come up. And I said, I don't know. I said, is it okay if I just slow to 20? I mean, I don't want to stop, but that's the lowest I'll go is to 20. And then you can run beside the car. Don't throw it in. Because it's important. It's a credit card. So don't toss it in the window. Catch me in the car and I'll take it from you. And then, you're on your own. And he tried hard. He's all right. He tried. He just didn't know. Well, he's at work. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know what? The lady, that's when I said, all right, I'll see you soon. I'll see you in about 15 minutes. And the young lady at the little desk there for, the valets, the car folks. And it was in the building. It was on the second, third floor, something like that. And she said, I saw the sign on the desk there. It said, no credit cards, just cash. And oh man, I don't have any cash. And I said to her, she was very sweet. She said, well, that's, she smiled. She had a great smile and didn't speak English, but I didn't need her to speak English because I knew what she was very nice and I was very nice. And I said, well, what are we going to do here? And then I just turned to my left and my car was right there. I mean, 8 feet away. It was parked. It's just a little odd moment of that's your car and here are you. And this is a very nice woman, but she can't take a credit card. So I called our accountant back again, and I just said, I'm in a fix here. I don't know what to do. They don't take credit cards, only cash, and I don't have cash. I only have $1. And he was a good guy. He got a credit card. I called him last night and told him this. He said, I'll get it, and I think I'll have it there first thing in the morning. I said, so you have the credit card? He said, yes, I have it right here. And I said, I didn't know what to do. And he said, you know what? I'll come down to where you are and I'll drive over there and I'll park. And I got the address. He said, what's the address? And the woman pointed to the sign and the number was up there. And I gave it to him. And he said, all right, it's not. He looked it up quickly on his laptop in the office. And he said, it's not that far. I think I can be there in 10 or 15 minutes. And I said, well, how do you like that? And I said, good, thanks. And he hung up and was getting ready to come over with some cash and a new credit card. And I sat down. There was a little bench there, and a woman sat down, was already there next to me. It was kind of about housewife age, 35 or 40. And she had such a nice smile. And she had been shopping. She had a couple of bags of things. And we just started chatting. It was very, very nice to chat with her. She was very nice. And I just pointed out again, and she knew this too, that sometimes a little moment, and she said, I know you can't get your car right now. I said, you know what? I'll be fine. And then you'll be fine. It's good not to lose our minds when something goes wrong on any given day. I said, it's nice. How wonderful is this to sit quietly for 6 or 7 minutes with you and just, you're going home and I'll be going home. And she said, you're right. And she was very nice. And then her car came up. They brought her car and she got up and stood and walked over there and opened the back seat and put in those bags. And she waved bye and I waved bye. Now, that's awfully nice. And sure enough, about, 5 or 10 minutes later, up comes our accountant on the ramp you see coming up, and he pulls around. And you know what, folks? I said that happy Thanksgiving to him. He was very nice. And I said, wait a minute, because I needed cash from him just to make sure. And I thought at $20, a $20 bill would cover it. But I said, wait a minute, that would be too crazy. That would make it just a lunatic story of just, okay, bye. And then she says, no, it's $21. But he stood there while I did this. And it was okay. It was $14 and some change. And so that was all right. And I did that. I shook hands with him, which we never do. I'm not a giant handshaker. But I said, you know what? Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a good one. And I said that to the woman at the counter there. And she wasn't closed in, by the way. She was in the open, meaning that it wasn't like a giant glass counter. But she was very sweet, too. And she got in my car and brought it around. She didn't have to, but she was all right. And I tipped her nicely, and I guess you don't have to do that, but she was very kind. And, oh, thank you. I said, you know what? You've been very nice. And look, I have my car now. And I said, you have a great Thanksgiving, too. And she said, yes, you too. And that's the kind of thing, folks, that it doesn't sound like much. It never sounds like much. But that's all right, because it is a lot. It really is. Well, there's much to be happy about with a little story about that. And it's the truth to say, it's my car. I'm back in my car. I'm going home now. Nothing terrible happened. I don't have to go downtown to some lot where they take cars to sit there until you come over. And she was nice, and I was nice, and our accountant was nice. My doctor was even nice. And so I thought that was pretty good and worth telling you about because, Thanksgiving, my wife is making a big to-do. We have a bunch of folks coming over, and she's making, lots of food she's whipping up. And it reminded me, that every year Thanksgiving was at our house when I was growing up. Every year. And it was very nice. We had a kids' table and the two big table extenders that went into the dining room table. And it was all family, and my mom cooked everything. And my dad carved the turkey and brought it into the dining room on the big platter, and it was just like the Norman Rockwell painting. And Uncle Joe and Aunt Arlene and their kids arrived 2 hours late, as always. And I always dug them. It's funny, they lived in Lower Manhattan on the Lower East Side, and they were never over at our house enough to know where it is. And Uncle Joe, God bless him, he wasn't a big directions asker. He wasn't a big, let me just pull over and go into that bar and ask someone where I'm going. So he said, you know what? I'll find it. I always find it. And he always did. 2 hours late. Every single year. And they come, remember Aunt Arlene and the three girls, Susan and Ellen, and Karen. And all of them came in the house, and they were smiling and happy. And Aunt Arlene and the three girls. And not Uncle Joe, though. He was never smiling and happy. And I always liked him. And he was just, you can imagine, I always wondered, even as a kid, what was that ride like? Was there any arguing or just staring or yelling, anything at all? And I'm sure there was. And but they came in and they were happy. And yes, after the meal, oh boy, it was a great meal. My mom, God bless her, cooked a great meal every year for Thanksgiving. And it was just right. Every dish was just right. And after the meal, every man was in the den, walked into the den, watching football on TV with their pants unbuttoned. And I mean, every year at right after, 2.5 minutes after the meal, they walked in there and everyone sat down, and my dad in the lounge chair, and everyone's belt was unbuckled and the pants were unbuttoned. Wow. Well, I always wished I had a photo of that. All of them. Uncle Morris, Uncle Harry, Uncle Arnie, Uncle Joe, and my dad on the couch and him on the recliner, breathing heavily and red-faced, while Aunt Sandy and Aunt Arlene and Harry's date and my mom and Grandma and Aunt Etty were in the kitchen cleaning up and wrapping leftovers and yakking. And I'm telling you, and also everyone, every woman, every man, smoking like a bandit. And I mean, I guess all houses at that time had that too, but we never realized it, how much everyone smoked. It was just smoke. I mean, good Lord. Our house must have looked like a brothel in Texas, just full of smoke. And here's something else I remember. Every year, not one man ever saw the game. They were all passed out cold 5 minutes after they sat down. The slacks open there, and pulling the tie down and opening the top shirt button. It's just, all right, who's playing here? Out cold, like you get hit by a dart with tranquilizer in it, every year. And so there was an hour of cleaning by the women folk and an hour of sleeping by the men folk. Then my mom would come into the den every year, just shake her head with a smile and yell, "Hey, dessert!" Now, that was always, all the men would flutter their eyes awake and look around, and one of them every year would say, "Well, what's the score? What's the course, no one knew. Everyone was passed out. They all shrugged. I don't know. Score or what? Who knows? And they struggled to their feet and made a line at the bathroom to pee and threw water on their faces. I loved that every year. The men shuffled back to the dining room, mumbling to themselves. That was my first lesson about men and women, by the way, because all the women had been talking to each other about everything. Well, kids in Little League and new curtains, and the men had no idea what the curtains were now. I mean, what fellow would? And so they all just muttered things to themselves, like, oh, okay, all right, jeez, I'm tired. Always to themselves. That's the key. That the women were happy. They're yakking. They're happy. They know each other. And the men are just mumbling to themselves. I don't know what the first Thanksgiving was like, folks, when the Indians came to the Pilgrims with food and everyone ate together. But I'll bet you the first hour after the meal was just like that. Even in those days, for crying out loud, the earliest part of the 17th century, still, Pilgrims, Indians, everyone just, what was there's no game on, there's no TV, but still all the Pilgrim women and the Indian women would go down to the riverbank there and wash the bowls, and the men are just out by the fire, still sitting there, and just with those Pilgrim hats on and the big buckle on it. And you know what? I would like that too. One of these years, I think it's nice to know that we still do the same things. That, once again, may not sound so big to you, but I think it really is. I know it is, and you know it too. And that's because we also know the same things, folks. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who loves you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And that's still the truest thing I know. Have a great Thanksgiving and take a nap. We'll see you next time.